a jump on stage and snatch the mic from the lead singer hand. He wants us to join in the chorus, give the Christmas cheer, go into the air. Then he kick and he say, in Trinbago I intend to stay. So that Santa, don't leave your bag of toys, don't forget you have to share it with every girl and boy. So that Santa, don't want to ride a sleigh in a big tent for you that Calabash in all day. So that Santa, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas everybody. So that Santa, don't want to ride a sleigh in a big tent for you that Calabash in all day. Riba! So that Santa, ay ay, baila baila, hey hey. Don't leave your bag of toys. Oh, hey, share it with every girl and boy. So that Santa, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas everybody. Merry Christmas. So that Santa, woo-hoo. Santa, Santa.
Hiya! It's Christmas, man. Never, never, higher, higher. Bring drinks, man, bring sips. Your friends are here. Never. Bring drinks, man, bring on drinks. I said to bring on sips, man. Never, never. Never, never. Never, never. Never, never. You say I'm passing by everybody. In Wheaton and in the country. Make sure you stock up your bar. Artists in America. Anything I drinking. Hey, bring the mansion. Bring the babash. Bring the whiskey. Bring the brandy.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry. This is, yes, the Thursday edition of the Corridor Transformation, and of course, the penultimate before my sabbatal or my hiatus. What do I mean? Very simple. My day off is tomorrow night. So, of course, I will be seeing you on Saturday night. Trinidad and Tobago time. But in the meantime, of course, a pleasant good night once again to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the World Wide Web, a pleasant good day to you. Yes, as per usual, we have a bumper program for you, but of course, I want to mix it in. I want to commingle it with, of course, some of the current, what I consider to be regional, geopolitical, and maybe farther afield as we look at some of the international issues as well. Of course, we would have had, of course, the meeting of the BRICS countries, and then, of course, we had, of course, the G20, when the BRICS would have been in Russia, and the G20, of course, in Brazil, and then, of course, the CARICOM Indian Summit in Guyana, of course, and therefore in the Caribbean. But more importantly, well, I want to make it clear that in the Caribbean here is a bit technical because Guyana is really in South America. Guyana is in South America. But because of the historical antecedent with the British and the colonial, historical, cultural, racial governance tie, it is considered to be part of the Caribbean. So let's get it clear. Guyana is, of course, a country in South America. And of course, as you know, the American continent is divided into North, which comprise fundamentally of Canada in the north, and then, of course, United States. And then, of course, Central America that begins in Mexico and ends, of course, on the, well, past the Yucatan and ends, of course, in Panama. And then, of course, from there, you have, of course, Colombia, etc., coming down. Peru, not Ecuador, no. Peru, of course, Brazil, yes. The Argentina is the country I'm trying to get, of course. Ecuador, no. Paraguay and Uruguay. Yes, indeed. And then, of course, you have Chile as well. Right? So Ecuador is part of the Central American part of that continent. All right? So I hope I have not been confusing, but of course we will extrapolate that for those of you who would want further clarification. That being as it may, of course, once again, of course, let's listen to the Christmas music, and then, of course, we get on to business immediately. Don't forget, of course, we have the situation with respect to the Forex. And, of course, Dr. Rowley's recent, of course, attempt at deflection. What is that? Meeting with Moody. Meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, and, of course, having a sideline, of course, MOU. Memorandum of understanding on several issues. We will look at that, but only from the context that it is designed. Moody doesn't know that he's part of the Rowley, what I consider the attempt to stay in office unmeritoriously design. We will talk about that after we listen to some good Christmas music as we did last night.
Christmas time, we moving from house to house. Hey, Christmas time, we moving from house to house. Christmas time, we going from house to house. Hey, Christmas time, we moving in the city, straight to the country. Hey,
it's Christmas, man. Never, never. Bring drinks, man. Bring sips. Your friends are here. Neighbor, bring drinks, man, bring on drinks. I said to bring on sense, man. Neighbor, 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 neighbor. This ain't passing by everybody. In town and in the country. Make sure you stock up your bar. Artists in America. Anything I'm drinking. Hey, bring the punch in. Bring the bring the whiskey, bring the brandy, bring the butter, bring the butter, never, 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 never.
can't you let when you're looking? 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 Wake up early Christmas morning to see me house don't have nothing. I don't know where my girlfriend gone. I'm so hungry and care about her. I know you're living fast, so I jump in my car. No, you cannot hide from me, cause I'm man hungry. I don't know what to do, so I come in by you. Bring out the money to eating dry bread. Can't you let when you're looking? Can't you let when you're looking? Can't you let when you're looking? Can't you let when you're looking?
Hey, left New York, come Trinidad, everything cool, everything real fine. Long time I don't come back home to enjoy myself for Christmas. Alright, this girl Caroline, she's a good friend of mine, she always have real life. But let me tell you this one time, this girl, she got the sweetest wine.
Well, this is live from New Delhi. You're watching special broadcast.
This girl, she got the sweetest wine. Then she was almost fine. Well, long time I don't check Caroline for the real fine wine concoction. It make me eye touch the sky, me not lie, me body can't function. So soothing, just soothing, make me move in slow motion. You understand me, Captain? This girl, she got the
Yes, indeed, of course, pleasant good night once again to all and sundry. I was trying to get really and truly the tardiness is as a consequence of trying to get a clip where, of course, a memorandum of understanding was signed between, of course, India, White, and, of course, the Prime Minister of that country was in Guyana. And I thought it was important, of course, to bring it live for you as an element of proof of that development. But of course, as we predicted last night and before and on the ground report, all of that is designed, of course, to deflect attention away from Dr. Rowley's and his party and his government, of course, travails, and of course to the what I consider to be the chagrin or the dismay and the disconcertedness and the concerns of the population of Trinidad and Tobago next year being an election. So in typical Rowley style, he would of course use these occasions to try to telegraph back to Trinidad, wherever he is, as he did of course with respect to Chogam, was not successful. That doesn't mean that he will not try again, of course, on that occasion, and therefore it was this elaborate charade to of course generate the air of course, cooperation and most importantly, friendly relationship between India and the Trinidad and Tobago under his administration. But let me tell you this: just as Donald Trump and the American government will not forget and will note that it was only when the American authorities expressed their concern with respect, of course, and Rowley and they know that. Don't believe he doesn't know, because I'm saying so from the perspective that he forgets conveniently. He has convenient amnesia. So he didn't know, for example, that the Privy Council said that why, or asked the question why his finance minister Imsbert was not investigated. And of course, he was confused about a simple statement made by a judge in the United States banning his current minister of and responsibility for the Attorney General's office. I'm talking about the Attorney General Lymore. Yeah, he didn't know, and arrogating onto the judge that made the decision, having regard to the information before him, told the government of Trinidad and Tobago they don't want to see Lymore because he lied and said that he was not part and parcel of the defense of Kwaitong and Day. So he was their client. He now turned state, what I consider to be representative, legal representative, and go and represent the state. The court said, no, that's not just a conflict of interest. That is unheard of in legal circles and in legal practice. You do not, of course, be a representative or the legal representative for the defendant, and because you get a hustle, you gone on the prosecution side and then claiming that you are now prosecuting the defendant who you defended sometime before in the same matter. So the court said, no, you know, Rowley say that if he was Lymore and he had a colleague that, according to Rowley's position is that the colleague is probably much more expert in the field of advocacy, legal advocacy, than Lymore, he would have made that mistake too. That is what he said, and have the man still there as Attorney General when in a court in the United States, a foreign court that has no connection to Trinidad and Tobago, has no agenda, political or otherwise, it said in no uncertain terms that they ban him because he lied. It is called perjury. Yes, he perjured himself. And Rowley still have him there. Well, of course, the recent one is that Rowley's perpetual perjury for political aggrandizement and electable suitability. He then tells us in the parliament, as he did with those fictitious and concocted emails, he said that he wasn't aware that, listen, the Privy Council, one of the justices said, why wasn't in their obiter dicta, why wasn't the Minister of Finance, Tom Imsbert, investigated? In the what? In the Auditor General versus the Ministry of Finance and by extension or by specificity, the Minister of Finance, the same Tom Imsbert. Yeah, so we know he is a man of convenience. I say all that to say that when he realized that the United States was onto him, he never recognized Guaido, the person who the United States and some 50 other countries concerned about what is happening in Venezuela recognize. Rowley was strident. Rowley never castigated Maduro for human rights violation, which is a fundamental thing. He also did the cardinal action, the cardinal sin of accommodating the vice president of Venezuela here in Trinidad under COVID, when our residents or citizens were left stranded in places like Barbados and elsewhere and farther afield, can't come in because they shut down the airspace and the borders. But he allowed that individual to come in on a sanctioned plane with PDVSA or the oil company, the National Oil Company of Venezuela, and officials. Yes, people, he allowed that to happen. I am saying that in the context of he believed that the Americans don't know or didn't know. I'm going to show you where I'm coming from in a while. And so, the next day, another local scenario or another incident came to the public's attention, and no doubt the Americans as well, and that is the company that was part of the fragmentation of Petrotrin that was responsible for and is responsible for the importation of fuel now for our energy usage, motorcars, industry, etc. Paria, that company, suddenly sell a shipload of gasoline to Aruba, they say, but ended up in Venezuela. He feels that the Americans know. And in addition to that, of course, no. You'll see it come up. When it come up, then you engage. So give me that. All right, let's go straight to the line. Yes. Thank you very much. Of course, our President, good night. Yes, we have our own little system in here where, of course, if we get it on the handset, we then, of course, will only do that if it is not showing up on the system that I am talking to you before. Our President, good night. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you, my friend.
Good evening, Mr. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, indeed. This is our Sandy Grandi friend.
Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for calling. Yes, go ahead.
We having a little line Sunday evening in Felicity.
Oh, in Felicity?
I don't know if
all right.
Yeah, I don't know if you and your family could come.
All right, good. Well, of course, you could always call me. Where it is, Sunday?
Sunday evening from 2 o'clock.
All right, good. Well, I know you're sure to contact me Saturday to give me a gentle reminder. I know I love to attend these occasions. Firstly, because there's plenty of food and drinks, and secondly, of course, I get a chance to meet some very antique vehicles, because I know you are the antique vehicle guys who are always on exhibition and is always an attraction to the national community.
Right. I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Which country in both and Limo?
What they say one in one Dominica, one Antigua. Which is which?
Probably from Tobago, right?
And probably from Tobago, yes, for sure.
And where the CJ from?
The CJ from Tobago as well. The Chief Justice you're talking about here.
Yeah, and the Roger Gaspard. Where he from?
Gaspard? Who's that?
Roger Gaspard, is he outsider too?
The AG? The AG is right?
Yeah.
That's
Limo. Roger Gaspard, that's no, I know Limo, the Roger Gaspard. Where he from?
Oh, Roger Gaspard.
The DPP.
I think I don't know. I've never that never
right.
came
okay,
up.
Well, here we're going on. If I was in both and the AG and Rowley, I sell everybody from Trinidad. I sell the whole of Trinidad, because you know why? Trinidad people, they're not smart.
they're
only
fools.
outsiders running Trinidad. So you mean to say Trinidad couldn't get people from Trinidad to run Trinidad affairs? We had to get
I agree. And of course, recently I think there's an uproar about a new CEO for WASA. They got him from, I think, Barbados, I believe. Yeah.
100,000 a month.
Yeah.
Probably go Ghana and get people to come and do things in Trinidad. But here I telling you that we look for this, Trinidad and look for what they're getting.
Yeah. And mind you, the man come to manage a water system that I am sure is twice or three times larger than where he came from, because just the size of the population of Barbados just over 100,000, and of course the other islands that they claim that he might have been from. Worse yet, if it's St. Kitts or one of them that could barely have 50,000 people, maybe a little less than that of Tobago, and yet still you hire him to manage a 1.5 million people serviced with water facility. I think it continues to be a myopia and a misnomer and a square peg in wrong hole scenario with this government, and we will see no change. We could guarantee that. Yeah.
But when Rowley said the people of Trinidad stupid, I agree with him.
Yeah. I too. I have to agree. Even though, of course, I relish not only an opposition to my conclusion, but I don't mind sparking some kind of
well, I hear
discussion
on the matter. I hear another thing, Just one before I go. I hear all of you call him all kind of this and that, but in the end up when you call him doctor, which means to say you support him. Hoping to see you and the family Sunday.
Yes, we have a little more to talk about. Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye. Yes, because a little humor is good as well, on a very serious program such as this, where of course the information is so biting and so incisive that people sometimes cringe. And I understand that on the comments on the various platforms are also biting in terms of course, their responses, particularly if you're taking a position where you adore a leader like Rowley under the PNM, or organization like the PNM, the former being, of course, a rapist and a pedophile, I talk about Rowley, the Prime Minister, and the latter, the PNM, being, of course, a criminal enterprise. You take your pick. But, of course, there are those who will gravitate there and believe. But let's get back, of course, to the charade and the recent addendum to the multiple and varied diversions, deflections of Dr. Rowley and the PNM. The recent, of course, is in Guyana. So as I said, I was looking for the video where, of course, he signed this memorandum. And again, yesterday we said, of course, it was designed not for what you see there, but for local or Trinidad and Tobago consumption. In other words, putting him on the international stage and saying that in spite of all of his iniquities, in spite of all of his incompetence, he, of course, is on the international stage, and we must therefore reduce, lower our standard and our impression and knowledge of him and give him a blind. That's what he's doing. Nothing different to when, of course, when he realized, well, look, things may not turn out the way how we would have liked. He goes in Tobago on, of course, that platform there and say somebody trying to assassinate him, suggesting, of course, it has been orchestrated by the UNC. Nothing different to when, of course, he went on the platform in 2020 in Sangre Grande and said that he ain't no monkey, that gorilla. He ain't no monkey. Well, of course, he ain't no monkey. He's a blasted gorilla. The orangutan, the largest ape that we know. Yeah. He ain't no monkey. And he know what the banana mean. Yes. And nothing different to when, of course, questions were being asked as to why he delayed. He was delayed, of course, in the United States after, of course, that meeting in Los Angeles. Yeah, with CARICOM. And he could account for the delay. And there was speculation that he would have been detained because he's being asked questions about money laundering and other matters of that nature by the American authorities. He then found a way to, of course, be in the presence of Biden, not by official invitation by Biden, but, of course, his friend from Diego Martin, who was resigning, and therefore maybe they gave him that honor from, of course, that university where he was given, of course, that honorary degree. And they orchestrated it in such a way, or they synchronized it in such a way that, of course, Biden would have also been given an honorary degree and an honorary doctorate, and therefore meet with, obviously, with Rowley, and they would have had a discussion. Of course, Biden, not being the wiser in such circumstance, because it is orchestrated, of course, open up the Biden administration to Rowley. So nothing different to what happened there with respect to Moody and signing these memorandum. It's all designed to try to keep himself relevant and to stay where he is by, of course, giving the impression that somehow he is something spectacular. I say he's a spectacular backside. I say he's a spectacular fool. I say that you could do so much and no more. I say to him that you could do the same thing over and over, and in the initial stages, people may see this as something that is genuine, but when you do it over and over and juxtapose it or simultaneously with the level of incompetence, impotence, and of course mismanagement of the resources of the country, and the level of corruption and nepotism and cronyism that is the reality of Trinidad and Tobago, we know that that is a rapscallion. on the international stage because he uses, of course, the power of the state given to him by the people of Trinidad and Tobago, which he has betrayed over and over and over and over. So that exercise is another of the shenanigans and the histrionics and the theatrics of the Rowley administration. Don't be bothered. It is for deflection purposes. Let us not waste time. Our focus must be, yes, the incompetence that we have experienced over the last 9 years, and that the current or the contemporary or the existential threat that this government is to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, our democracy, our economy, etc. And of course, accounting for the over $2 billion that has not been accounted for. Let us not waste time. And of course, tell us what has happened, what is the true score with respect to the Vincent Nelson matter and the attempt, of course, to pervert the course of criminal justice by your former Attorney General Al-Rari, and of course the setting up of a former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan, and of course legal luminary Ramdeen. Let us know that we're not going to deviate, Rowley. All you try will be in vain. Like a puff, and it will dissipate. Like mist will dissipate. And of course, out of that rot and that ashes will come, of course, Kamala Prasad Bisesa and the UNC, representing the phoenix of salvation and of course, moving Trinidad and Tobago forward, because we can do better, must do better, etc., etc. Let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Mr. Lennox.
Pleasant good night to you as well, my friend. Yes.
I would like them to share and to tell another one. And don't forget, listeners who are logging on, support the toy drive. It is for a good cause. Mr. Lennox, is 10 more months and I will be brutal to you. So here we're going on. You went India and you meet the richest set of people and in business. But today, the United States court have a warrant out for one of the richest men in India. So I just wondering if that connection, because it have a fellow, your friend who you love so much, and he'll scoff and sneeze, get sick to hear his name. With all the money laundering, I only hope he know that he give back out, because I find it strange. Limo and the finance minister fly out on a secret mission. But we will get there to the facts. So Moody went to Guyana and signed a food security. But Raleigh went to India and he come back. But the ambassador sent 6 businessmen and signed a memorandum of understanding to rice, to produce rice and other trade. So how it is Moody didn't come and sign a memorandum of understanding with us and to do trade and give us a line of credit? But you see, Mr. Lennox, when you want to cuss people and you feel that the dragon gas would have put you as the supreme being and above everybody and people will come to you, you see, you must wait until you have it in your hand, then to boast on people. Now, the thing about it, you could see that this economy for the last 9 years was never managed in the right way. That is why our foreign exchange and our foreign reserve, it reached a snag and a shortage. And I will ask again, I wouldn't be distracted from Rowley and all what he's coming with. Rowley, why are you not calling the internal election? Why India is not being investigated? And why you didn't launch an inquiry into the minister? why it is the money on the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is used as import reserve, and why it is now you are treating workers like dog. So Trinidad and Tobago, and all the listeners in Trinidad and Tobago, especially Trinidadians, when the call is made to go to the EBC, please come out, because now our citizens and senior citizens is so poor that they're living on their scrums. Have a nice good night, Mr. Lennox.
Same to you, my friend. Same to you. I say I still resist, of course, being associated with this, what I consider to be evil, diabolical, criminal enterprise called the PNM, and worse yet, of course, a predator of a licentious. Let me be more direct, of a rapist and a pedophile nature. Let me forget the word licentious. That is for the ground report, of course, on morning. On this program, we try to be as raw and as pure as possible. The one is called, of course, one is called the euphemistic, when you're trying to be nice, use nice words to color up things. And of course, a euphemism, when of course you are using a word that is raw and direct. I want to use the euphemistic aspect of course, the use of language in this particular case, because he is the scum of the earth, and we must say that until he gets out of office, and of course be greeted with blue lights and silver bracelet. I'm talking about the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Christopher Rowley. So whether he met with Moody or not, it remains the same. You see, tigers cannot change their stripes, nor leopard their spots. You know what I say that tigers cannot change their stripes, and leopards cannot change their spots, and therefore arose by any other name. But in this case, of course, you have to say sting and nettle. By any other name, it's still sting and nettle. It will scratch, and don't get me vexed before I say a picker tree. By any other name, it's picker itself, and therefore it will of course prick you. Yes, that's a proper English word. It will prick you, and you'll have pricks or prickles all over your skin by a picker tree. That being as it may, let's go straight to the line. A pleasant good night to welcome.
Hey, Lennox.
Good night, my friend.
Are you hearing me good?
Yes, loud and clear, my friend, loud and clear.
Right. So, I know you might disagree with me here, but let me show you this, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know Trump is my boy, Donald Trump.
Yes.
I agree with Biden for sending up heavy Ukrainian people, eh? Let me tell you why. Putin no Trump in power. Kim Jong-un no Trump in power. Them fellas want war, them don't care.
Yeah.
And Trump, when he was out of power, was telling Biden why do heavy people in Ukraine.
Yes.
And they show the American with nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
They're far more advanced than Putin on. America has the best nuclear weapons in the world.
Yeah.
So when you come into nuclear warfare, Putin want to do with Trump.
Of course not.
Right. I know Kim Jong-un going to send 10,000 troops to help Putin.
Yeah.
So I like whether Biden try to humble Putin or Trump or not. That is not the question. Here where I coming from now.
Go ahead.
You see all the people that Putin may go out of Ukraine are going to their bordering countries. They show that long time. The homes that they staying in, they have them like servant, scrubbing the floor, doing all the work in the house. And the single men having sex with them. And all of that. The advantage in the women, Lennox.
Right. Oh, yeah. And they kidnapping the children too.
Yes.
I mean, that's why Putin is wanted by the International Criminal Court.
Right.
Yeah.
So on that grounds, I agree with Biden. I like Biden for that. whether it's genuine or not. But Kim Jong-un and Putin show you they want war. You understand?
Yeah.
And if I was them woman, Lennox, and I had to do all the work in their houses, I tell you, Franco, man, I'm poisoning them people, you know.
I hear you.
I'm poisoning them and taking their house.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, you mean you only want nobody ain't gonna know?
Yeah, I hear you, because it's war. So you disguise your nefarious act and, should I say, barbaric conduct by, of course, by you do that. But you know, you remind me of Rwanda, and when, of course, after all is said and done, a lot of persons got tried for mass disposal of human beings. Genocide.
Yes,
Genocide.
but in the case of that advantage you're taking on them people because you're rescuing them.
Oh, I see.
And you give them a little help out in your house. You'd rather treat them so?
I hear you.
Old women, young boy, slightly chance I get. I poison them.
I hear you. I hear you. You don't abuse me and expect me having an opportunity to strengthen you to continue to abuse me. Best I use the same opportunity to reduce the abuse that you could exhibit on me. Unleash on me. I agree. All right. I hear you. I hear you.
And I'm taking your house too because you really want it out. Nobody ain't gonna know nothing what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yes. And I could claim.
What do you mean? You can't just until you women so.
I hear you. You're thinking far, boy.
What do you mean, Alex?
Right.
I mean, I demand like let's keep women every time going up, you know.
Yes.
I always have soft spot for women.
Okay, right. Okay, my friends. All right. I hear you. I hear you.
I grew up in the Irish West and Polanka and all them, you know.
Mr. Faizabad introduced a warrant situation. I didn't get it clear because I am not familiar and I omitted to ask him. Mr. Faizabad, call back. You started your conversation with some kind of warrant issue. I may have missed it. I may not have gotten it correctly. And I was attracted to, of course, quiz you on the matter, but the conversation went all over the place and I forgot so to do. So if you could call back and just tell me something that recently happened, because I'm not familiar with that at all. I can't remember exactly if it's a warrant about something, but do that for me, please. I'll appreciate that because we like to get behind the truth. Thank you, Mr. Tagrigo.
You done with me already?
Huh?
You done with me?
If what?
You finished?
Yeah. No.
I'm telling you the truth here.
Yeah. But you have any other thing to add?
Well, I mean, as a lover of girls, especially in my time when I was growing up.
I hear you.
Romantic times, especially and Polanka people.
Okay.
I can't stand to see women being treated like that.
All right, I hear you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I agree with Biden because Putin and them, they want war, they're showing you that.
All right.
And they're showing Trump that too. Trump must know that.
Yes.
Yeah, man, they're going to blasted weapons that Russia and done with them.
And done with them, yeah, because it's mutual destruction at minimum. The maximum,
right.
Russia done for sure.
Yeah.
But Putin knows that, so he ain't that stupid. His advisor will tell him that all the things that he wants to accumulate on Earth, he could only do that in Russia. He's limited to Russia. And if there's no Russia, there will be no him. So, in more ways than one, yeah.
On the ground, I say, show you.
Yeah. The fact that he called North Korea to help him shows that he's under some very serious pressure. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, he done more.
Yeah.
All right, we go talk if I call again.
Yes, my friend. Yes, right. Indeed. So let's get back to of course, the distractions, the recent distraction. What? Of course, I think I would have, of course, showed where the Americans would have known that he was not sincere when he interacted with them, Rowley, and I showed you how he was able, of course, to get around that by, of course, that what I consider to be convenient doctorate to get Biden to have a conversation with him. Otherwise, he could not. And of course, they would have known that he put 82 persons on a military plane to go back to Venezuela. He did that in the early days, yes, of the migration of Venezuelans out of Venezuela. And Venezuelans, among them that were, of course, seeking asylum, or should I say refugee status, having been on this soil. And we as a country had in fact signed that United Nations agreement to, of course, accommodate people who are migrating out of conflict zone. And no doubt Venezuela would have been qualified as a conflict zone. The fact that, of course, at the OAS, Rowley orchestrated the non-voting. He abstained, and in recent times, when the election matter came up, there was no show of Trinidad and Tobago. So they know. They know. That is why he was not invited to Mar-a-Lago, the home of the current the current president of the United States elect. But let me hear from Mr. Faizabad. Yes, Mr. Faizabad, go ahead. Mr. Faizabad?
Yeah.
You mentioned something at the beginning of your presentation, and I didn't get it quite. So I wanted to just find out what you were talking about.
Well, again to the new listeners who joined. Mr. Lennox, what I was saying is that when Keith Rowley, based on the Guyana and the visit, when Rowley went to India with and met with the richest, the biggest conglomerate in India.
The Hefe, the shakers and movers in the economic sphere, the business sphere in India. Yes, go ahead.
Right, and he was and he come back and he's saying, based on what you are saying, that shenanigans of what he just come with. Now I'm telling you that on the news, right? That they have the company he had met with. They raised funds on the international market in America and all too for solar energy, right?
I see. Okay.
And they had, and the boss himself and his nephew and the next one had put out $250 million bribe to get them to sign on.
I see.
Right? And they get now in the signing, they get to realize that they had padded, they had influence.
No,
that,
so
okay,
they accommodated a corrupt, let's say, payment.
Yeah, besides the corrupt payment is that they was telling the shareholders, just like how Keith Rowley and NGC and the NGL stock that we lost for 9 years.
Yeah.
Right. He tell us that, and he's saying now that we have a bigger share in LNG.
Yeah.
It's something just like that. And
Could you send that for me? Could you send that for me if you can? You can send for me. I'd really like to follow up on it. That sounds very interesting.
Because it's on YouTube. So the US pick him up for misleading the investors of the United States.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, I see.
So they have him on. So
it's a kind of pyramid scam.
Yeah. So he said that the electricity would have bring the solar panels on them would have earned $2 billion within a certain amount of years.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But how it earned it is that they was selling it higher than the market price to the suppliers.
No, I see.
So they catch them in a fraud.
Yeah. For personal or for enrichment. Yeah. I hear you. I get you.
So right now it is in the US hand.
Right. And
so
that would have been one of the companies that Rowley would have met with in India.
Then I'm taking caution. So
okay.
I just only hope that our refinery
It might have been, of course, and you're saying that cautiously. All right, I will follow up. All right, and send the information for me, but I will look for it as well. All right?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Yes, sir, people, of course, we try to be as fair as possible, and fair here means the truth and nothing but the truth. And that will, as some people say, set you free. But let's get back, of course, to Rowley and the distraction that he recently, and let me say one time before I continue with the specificity or the details or the granular events that clearly he would not want us to know or have been engaged in, and therefore buttresses the incompetence, the impotence, and the mismanagement and the corruption that is, of course, the Rowley PNM administration. So what's the latest? Apart from, of course, the Moody signing of this memorandum, let's dismiss that. But there are more. Because remember I told you they are engaged in multiple, multi-dimensional and multi-level distractions. So here what? In Trinidad, Georgia was talking about, of course, going to court and trying to get, of course, monies that the UNC was supposed to pay to the courts because they lost the 2015 court matter that the court gave, that the court decided upon to say that, of course, the results should have remained the same. I'm talking about the election petitions that reach as far as the appeal court here. And mind you, let us not waste time. Election petitions, the highest court that it could reach is the appeal court in Trinidad. I'm saying that if it was to reach, and it should be, that arrangement should change, it should reach in the Privy Council. Might have been a different story. Because Stuart Young, in an interview recently, I talked about like yesterday or today, talked about the fact that, and talk about the rain. And of course, the EBC extended the time by 1 hour. The court said that they have no authority to do so, rain or no rain. Understand that? They had no authority to do that. But he's trying, of course, to put in a plug and to, of course, have a soft landing for the transgression of the EBC in that regard. And I want to tell you, that in itself is a distraction. So that's the other distraction that they pile up on top, of course, the one in Guyana. Yes, indeed. And, of course, when Rowley goes to the parliament and say that he didn't know that the Privy Council said that Imbert should be investigated, that is a distraction as well. Multiple varied distractions they are now engaged in. It's not one, they're piling it on so that you could be distracted almost in perpetuity, or at least until and up, they hope, until, of course, you cast your vote on the election day, believing somehow that they could get back into office. I say, hold all your tail. The people's minds are made up no matter what you try, Rowley. So, we didn't know that they were going to sign any memorandum. And it's clear that, of course, that arrangement was made when they realized that they had an opportunity. You see, they are opportunistic political parasites. And their actions are only designed, of course, to give them some kind of credibility, some kind of supercilious position, some kind of superior position to make the population, the gullible ones that is, who are still around, or the sycophants who are still in denial, that of course somehow they are credible. I say to you, all of that is part of their shenanigans and part of their camouflage and part of their bid to stay in office and to continue to do us evil. And you mustn't forget, of course, that they met 10 billion US in reserve, and today is about 4 billion. You must not forget, because that is supposed to deflect your mind away from these very pertinent survival as a society, as a nation, as a what I consider to be a evolving society, a civilization called Trinidad and Tobago. You must not know that we are close to the IMF as a result of the melting away of all that money over the last 9 years. You must know that the piano was broken in 2015, and today they're building something costing over $100 million. You must know. You must not remember that, of course, they talked about sandals bringing in 500 million a year, and today not a blasted cent. You must not remember that, of course, there was no need to close down Petrotrain, or indeed the oil refinery that is now mothballed, that of course has created the situation where we cannot get to $50 US. They want you to forget by their shenanigans and by their diversions that you had in place energy security by virtue of the oil refinery, and of course a multiple and decentralized economic platform for the acquisition of foreign exchange. I'm talking about here specifically Point Lisas, and over 12 companies left, pack up and left. Why? Because Rowley tell them that he has shareholders too, and that you must give me a greater piece of the pie, that backside. And of course, in the final analysis, the people say, listen, I cannot do business here. It is not viable for me to do business. So, of course, companies such as ArcelorMittal, the iron and steel company, as well as, of course, Yara, and a number of other companies that found themselves on the estate in Point Lisas, they all left the blasted country, and therefore we are foreign exchange emaciated. You know what I say we are foreign exchange emaciated. You don't have. Gone. Because of his belligerence and his stupidity, and we must continue with these asses in office, detrimental to our economic and physical and psychological health and social health. No, cannot be. Not even lower animals or even plants gravitate to what I consider to be desert-like circumstance or conditionalities. When you abuse any animal sufficiently, they plunge back at you in defense of their survival, because the best, or should I say, the first law of survival is self-preservation. We in Trinidad and Tobago as a people must now be in survival mood, and of course, therefore, in self-preservation. We must preserve Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore, there is a responsibility of this generation to, of course, make certain that the conditions are laid for future generations and those that are coming immediately after us. Understand that. The first law of survival is self-preservation, and we have to preserve ourselves, and by doing so, we will be preserving Trinidad and Tobago by extension. And the first thing we must do is get rid of those that are an impediment, a hurdle, or is despotic, or indeed pernicious and inimical to our survival as a society. And Rowley and they and his gang of incompetence are the sole and the only and the monolithic infringers and impediment to moving forward and to, of course, responding appropriately to the challenges that is the 21st century Trinidad and Tobago and world. Let us not waste time with these vipers. Let us not waste time. People, of course, the lines are open. Of course, don't forget the number to call, 337-6940, 337-6940. And, of course, I cannot overemphasize the need for us to understand that all of these, he's going to come back here and, of course, and pile on all the glory and all the things that they would have said. You've been doing that forever. And why I would know that, and why you should understand that as well. Before the social media or the regular media or the traditional media filmed or telegraphed at that occasion in Guyana, the signing between Trinidad and Modi or India, he acting on behalf of India as the Prime Minister. All last night, Rowley's Facebook page was telling us how, and I'll have a picture, how we meet Modi. Not tomorrow night, but certainly on Saturday night, we will extrapolate and we will go into it. Yeah. All of that. But the point I am making is that the Americans know all of the efforts and what he did in the case of the Americans to have the Americans delay what they ought, or I'm sure they have contemplated to do to Trinidad. And the ultimate, of course, is sanctioning Rowley, and they specifically, and not the people per se, but Rowley and his cabinet members, because they made the decision to bring in Delcy Rodriguez, and all of the decisions that would have been made at the OS against our interests and against our most powerful partner in the North. I'm talking about the United States and the 50 other democratic not organization, but countries that, of course, were supporting the opposition in Venezuela. Guaido. He, Rowley, went against that grain and talking, I said, a hogwash, but he was representing us. He represented the blasted self, not us, because we have gained no benefits from that. And now that Trump is back there, the possibility, notice that Shell has not signed off on anything palpable, tactile, or tangible. And the Shell is supposed, of course, to be putting out the money in order to run the pipeline from the Dragon Field to the Hibiscus Field, to the Hibiscus platform, so that the gas can be accumulated and monetized for, of course, our domestic consumption, and for, of course, making some money. Notice that. Yes, people. Rowley must come back here understanding that he has brought further shame and disgrace to Trinidad and Tobago. And he should have called an election before he blasted go there, in order, of course, to embarrass Trinidad and Tobago once again. But they know, and they know. Why would Modi know that Rowley is mamagayin? It's all talk, but because he holds the office of Prime Minister, he has to deal with him. He has the office. Why? You see, it was Rowley who castigated the Indian High Commissioner, the representative of India, during the course of COVID, when, of course, the donation of what? Of vaccines. Let's take this call before, of course, I extrapolate. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
I want to ask you all one question. Why is it Rowley, he lives in Trinidad, the Prime Minister of the country, he, the Minister of National Security, the bicycle wheel and coal pot mouth man, and the Rastaman and the Commissioner of Police. Why is it they don't go into all those places in Trinidad? Trinidad must have been a very small place. Why is it they don't go and meet these fellas and talk to them who is holding the guns? Rowley said that he's going to pay the police and them more money. Who is going to hold these people? But he's the Prime Minister of the country. He's the rightest one to reach all this. Narendra Modi has reached all part of India where they threatened to kill him. The Sikhs threatened to kill him. The Islamic threatened to kill him. The Muslim, Saturday Muslims threatened to kill him. The Hindu like himself threatened to kill him. The Khalistani and the Sikhs threatened to kill him. And he has reached all parts of India. And they threatened to kill him even in Ukraine. And he reached Ukraine, although they threatened to say if he go to Ukraine, they go kill him. He reached Ukraine and he reached Russia in war. And he also reaching all after the World War where they have. He reaching. What happened to Rowley cannot reach with his right man reach without a gun. Eh?
Yes. Repeat that for me. Repeat that a little louder for me. I didn't hear that last part.
What happened to Rowley and the Minister of National Security and all of them cannot reach these fellas and talk to them. Get the guns, all you.
Right.
Get the guns. We come to talk to all you. Right? But the white man reach all you without the gun.
Yes.
And he belongs to Trinidad.
Well, you had to take it from what Rowley said. Rowley said that when a government cannot address these kinds of issues, they are part of the problem. I say no more.
Yeah, because this man meeting nobody to talk to solve this problem.
Yes.
When a kidnapping, when it had a kidnapping, a murder under the white man.
Yes.
It was an island-wide manhunt.
Yes.
Look at the amount of kidnapping in Trinidad, and only these kidnapping with these businessmen, mostly according to the head of the union leader, I forgot how they call him, in the UNC areas.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah, no, well, I have said it frankly that remember the exchanging of the $100 bill and taking it out from the mattress of people, their long hard earned savings and
right.
And property tax. They really have attacked the Indian community, because Rowley himself said that he is disappointed with the Africans, meaning that they are at the lowest rung of the socio-economic ladder. So the people who he will be extracting money from clearly would be the Indians, because he doesn't see the Indians in that category.
All they do is a waste of time. How much people they hold with that?
Yeah, let's not waste time. We have to be real. We have to be truthful. And it's not a matter of race, but it's a matter of being practical and pragmatic.
Now, when they see, and they have a race in me, I go Northman's and Logan Road.
No, you are talking objectively, and that is good. That is what Trinidad and Tobago wants, a breath of fresh air in a dose of reality.
The best people we live at.
Yes.
At that time, us Creole people, better than any Indian. But this Rowley, when you see John Ramley and Adam Ram Logan wearing gold, what that mongoose smart man come out and he do to anybody wearing gold, they will have to show the receipt where they buy it. Why they don't look at all them wearing gold? That's all that they did.
Mm-hmm.
You can remember that?
Yes, definitely.
I tell you, these people dirty.
The wicked, they are manipulative and they are abusive, and they are about staying in office unmeritoriously, doing nothing for the people, but of course want to stay there because somehow they believe that they have the devilish right so to be. The devilish right so to be.
This same Rowley insulted Diana remember the time?
Yeah. When he talked about the dollar, then but he went on to talk to Rodney Charles and say why ain't go to Guyana, suggesting that somehow Guyana is not a place for someone to go. Yeah.
Insulted America when Trump was here.
Yeah, I think it was Cameron Robinson Regis in the Parliament who said, "Who the hell is Trump?" And of course he said, he don't have to go to
really do have shame.
Yeah, to
Look
Trump. Yeah.
This man abuse.
Yeah, he abuse office and insult us, malrepresent us, and that he ought not to be in office at all.
Yeah. And look at this man. He abused an Indian and a Hindu woman who give right fig. And he gone to shake Narendra Modi hand. Narendra Modi has offered one and a right fig every morning in his prayer room.
Well, the evil men will always follow them. And the hole that you dig, as some people would say, you end up falling it, especially if it is for evil purpose, and clearly this is one.
And let me tell you something, Lennox.
Go ahead.
In Rowley kitchen, on his cupboard, there's always had a hand, a right pig. You remember he said monkey does eat right pig?
Yeah, he says monkey.
He said right pig.
You know what it means. It's monkey does eat right pig.
Monkey does eat right pig.
Yeah.
But when the journalist went to interview his wife, she was exercising. They had a hammer right pig on the cupboard. She burned right pig.
Yeah.
She burned right pig.
It's hilarious, but it is a reality that these fellas have gone mad.
Yeah, she burned right pig with berries.
Yeah.
She drank. And she offered the woman too. So I wonder if Rowley is a monkey, right is a monkey, and he turned his monkey person, right pig.
Yeah, well I think he more represent the larger version. He's looking more like an ape.
Then he come back to say, this man needs in my house.
Yeah.
This man needs in my house. He come back to say, eat a right pig and offer your neighbor one.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes. And he came back as well and talked about when he wanted to introduce the SOE. He said that if you had two right fig, share one with your neighbor. You see, this man is in itself is conflict.
He come in to tell we poor people and we elderly eat cassava.
Oh, yes. Eat cassava, yes. Yeah. When he came back from Ghana. Yeah. When he came back from Ghana, he talked about cassava and yam and dashin.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could afford to buy cassava to eat.
Yeah, but these days you can't afford it either.
And he said he was importing cassava and yam.
All of that. That's not a hogwash, man. That man is a failure of exceptional order. And he wouldn't call election until...
I'm telling you, I'm glad for all your boys.
All right.
I'm praying for all your boys.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad God bless all you.
Okay.
And we have to vote UNC.
Yes.
We have to vote UNC.
Yeah, if we have to save Trinidad and Tobago, UNC is the order of the day and is the salvation that we all must pray, hope, and of course endorse. Yes, indeed. So people, of course, that was our senior citizen, of course, making her contribution and, of course, reminiscing on some of the pertinent issue. I think what came out very, very, very pellucid is that, of course, Rowley's statement and at times they say that who the gods wish to destroy the first send them mad. And, of course, they have gone mad because Rowley, said in no uncertain terms that, of course, if a government is unable to treat with the multiple and devastating issues that Rowley's government of the type that they have introduced to this country and is presiding over, they are part of the problem and should resign. But he is showing no sign of resignation, only piling it on. But we shall, of course, sieve through. We shall discern. We shall be meticulous And we shall be discerning to the point where we can separate the goat from the sheep, and then, of course, deliver the blow that is required to get rid of Rowley and the PNM. And it must be relegated, they must be relegated to the dustbin of history, because people like myself are committed beyond the next election, beyond, and in a post-Rowley PNM administration, post-after, and the advent of Kamala Prasad Bisesa and the UNC after the 2025 elections, we are going to be constant as the Northern Star, because we know that they are coming, of course, with self-righteous indignation, platitudes, pretending that they didn't cause the difficulty that Trinidad and Tobago would have been subjected to, and the remedies that would be now of necessity be prescribed for moving Trinidad and Tobago forward, as was the case with A&R Robinson, when he had, of course, to steer the ship of state 2 months of import after our PNM government, Eric Williams into, of course, chambers. And why is it they were in the process of resurfacing and refloating and stabilizing Trinidad and Tobago? Up comes, of course, Manning and Rowley, and they and all over the country playing self-righteous indignation and telling us it's a new PNM, it's a new PNM. I say examine the horns then and examine them now, and you will see the same blasted horns, and therefore they are no damn good, and therefore we must have a post-election mechanism to keep the tails out of office. Keep them out. And that is what, of course, the persons like myself, the ground report, observers, etc., are committed to, because we know where they are coming from. You see, it is important that you understand your enemy. And if a person doing the same thing over and over, especially if they are successful, and even though, of course, it is inimical to the wider good, as is the case now, they will continue so to do. So we anticipate what they will do, just as how we anticipated what that Guyana meeting was all about. Attending that was all about. And here it is before our very eyes. It is a distraction on top of the distractions. All right, let's go to the line. On top of the distractions that already exist, and they will intensify, we know that, and therefore we must intensify our counter distraction agenda. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good evening, Mr. Smith.
Good evening to you as well.
Yeah, I'm listening to you there, and you know, I think about how Laventille West rejected Fitzgerald Hines.
Yes.
But you know something? PNM people, with their 9-day memory, by the time the election rolls around in 2025, they would have forgotten, because you know Rowley is a magician, and he knows exactly how to manipulate and pull the strings of the people in the East-West corridor. So, in spite of the fact that they have rejected him, and now the same people are going to vote for him then in the next election. But you know something? In the animal kingdom, the strongest ones emerge the leader. But in the kingdom of man, any damn fool could lead.
Especially that of the PNM and Rowley.
Right. Yes. That rapist and that pedophile.
That's right.
And I don't know if there's a statute of limitations where that is concerned.
No, there is none. And of course, there are some things that are coming that he hope will not come, but will, of course, be set him at the appropriate time. Let me put it that way. I say no more.
Right. Okay. Now, the other thing is that when Rowley made that statement about if the government cannot handle crime in particular, then the government is part of the problem.
Yes.
Of course, when he made that statement, PNM was exempted from that.
well, it has to be.
What I'm saying?
No.
Yeah.
In all practicality, and I share your view, it has to be because he has not subscribed, or should I say, implement or effect that which he said then. And of course, we know that it's part and parcel of the agenda of lies and mendaciousness. So we know that they're depraved and they have no moral and ethical pillars to stand on. So you come in our face and be so incompetent and still remain in office. Go ahead, my friend.
You know, Rowley has openly said that he is an Obia man, in effect.
Yeah. I remember that.
So, you know, to think that there is any, for lack of a better word, any righteousness in that man, of course there's none. And PNM by extension, the people that make up the cabinet of the PNM, all supporters of PNM, they're corrupt to the core.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's what he does. Both the fellow flock together, and he would have recruited, of course, those who would subscribe to that level of decadence, corruption, and nepotism. No doubt, and we have seen it unfolding on a daily basis.
And I really would like to know what guarantee do we have that next year there will be free and fair elections in Trinidad and Tobago, knowing that everything in Trinidad is PNM. TTPS belongs to the PNM. The judiciary, PNM. The DPP office is PNM. The ABC is PNM. So what I'm saying is this. Rowley has said no international observers. He has flat out refused to allow that.
Yeah.
So then what mechanism would there be in place to make sure that the ABC doesn't extend PNM time in Laventille so that they could win, or other PNM strongholds? You know, because one suitable for them and another.
Go ahead. I'm just smiling because, you know, sometimes the blood rushes to your head, so you have to smile in order to get some degree of sanity or maintain some kind of equilibrium. Yeah.
So the thing is, what is there in place to ensure that that Trinidad and Tobago indeed has free and fair election? Because I see what PNM is doing to the TPP in Tobago.
Yes.
How they are just being obstructive, about obstructionists.
Yes.
All of the roads and the development that the Farley and the TPP are trying to do in Tobago, PNM is finding ways and means of being obstructing the people with the development of the Tobago.
Yeah.
So if they can do that, and really, PNM people are so stupid. In Trinidad, Rowley tells them that Indian is the enemy. And in Tobago now, I don't know who's the enemy in Tobago, because Tobago don't have that much of a Indian population, for one. And two, I see where Rowley is trying to just give away land, etc., to his 1% and percenters, to the 1%ers in Trinidad. So I don't know, but the thing is, you know, the only thing it seems that could get rid of Rowley, it has to be supernatural intervention, divine intervention, because he is a man with no scruples, no ethics, no moral standards, nothing. And he doesn't care as long as his pocket is filled from the coffers of Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow.
So that is my contribution for this evening.
I want to tell you, my friend, before you leave, go to the top of the class. That is an appropriate, or should I say, with a high degree of specificity, the reality, the characteristics of what is purporting to be government, governance, prime minister and ministers and cabinet in Trinidad and Tobago. But you asked a very valid question. I'm going to do my best to respond to it because, well, off air, of course, but thank you very much for your intervention.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Of course, the fundamental question is, what will stop Rowley from, of course, engaging in unfair methods, getting an unfair advantage, as we have seen over the years, whether it be in 2015. Well, in 2015, he was a newly coined, or a newly, should I say, minted coin. So therefore, one thought that he was genuine. So let's get there. You see, because my response to that, and of course, let me give you the conclusion, that he will lose the election in spite of whatever he would try. And let me say off the cuff as well, there is no guarantee that he will not try to get an unfair advantage. Let me repeat, there is no guarantee that Rowley and the PNM will not try to get an unfair advantage. The only positive I'm certain of is that it will not work and they will lose the elections. Having said that, let me say to you that no human being, no animal, I said earlier, but let me be more specific, or plant, gravitates to and absorbed in perpetuity to even jeopardize their very existence. Because as I have said before, the first law, the first rule of survival is self-preservation. So notice, a plant, if you are wetting or you are pouring water on, let's say, one side alone of where the roots are supposed to take root and spread, all the roots divert themselves to where the water is. That's so, because it's about survival. And no animal will, of course, spontaneously or voluntarily see danger and, of course, go into it. Because there are two fundamentals of a living thing for its survival. A pleasant good night. Let me just finish here. Two fundamental for living things to survive is to move and to eat. To move and to eat. And, of course, avoid danger. Move and to avoid danger. So, having said that, let me pause, and then, of course, I'll continue why it is the Rowley administration, in spite of its efforts to try to steal the elections, cannot win. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Yes, Lennox. I see Zamzam giving Zamiman giving he gave an interview today, boy. When he did talking rubbish about Zami, nobody can hear from him. He's quiet. But he come out with, and talking about he win some case and he had to pay money and all kind of foolish stuff. He gone on Fat Albert show.
Yeah. I'll comment to that in the final part of my presentation tonight.
Like, if that have relevance, only people in this country, like, me studying that, you think I could take that and put...
We have a response for him. He goes shock. All of them go shock. Because that is part of that's one of the latest diversion. Notice that. They go to court. And that come out and so on. So just as Moody, yeah. But go ahead.
Last week was the salary reviews, and this week is this one. Anything that throw people off in this country.
Yeah. They are engaged in multiple and diverse and many part diversions. We're gonna extrapolate. We're gonna expose them. Go ahead.
Well, they're throwing that for the sycophants. Remember that idiot for the
they have to keep them. Yeah, they have to keep them, man. You are a smart fellow, man. They have to keep them believing that they have the capacity to stay in office. Because what I know for a fact is that all of them have decided not to go out and vote if they can't bring themselves to vote for the UNC. That is what I know. They know that too. But go ahead.
Like I say, you have the judge of the 9 years in office.
Yes.
Not on 2010 to 2015. Your life didn't matter then. Is what matter after 2015 to now. How your life is and how it is going to be. If you put them back there for the next 5 years, Mr. Lennox,
yes,
if you jeopardize yourself, your family, and your current life in this country, you could imagine what will happen. You heard Kevin Ramnarayan said it today about the Forex?
Yes,
how they mismanage the entire thing?
Of course. Well,
right?
I mean, we said it here you didn't have to listen to him to know that, or you did, but he has confirmed what we have already said.
Right. And to put them back there to do the same nonsense again. Oh God, it's like digging your hole and jumping in and burying yourself.
Yes,
and you know, the UNC, they chastise the UNC for some of the arrangement they make with the foreign companies, the oil conglomerates. But you now come out and say that because they had things reasonable, and it's called like half a dozen rather than a whole dozen, the people was exploring more around the borders of Trinidad to find more oil finds and gas finds. But now that you bust all of this thing on these people, and jump on a plane and ride out and go on Guyana, you understand? So they don't have no interest in coming to research or
to look for the seismic survey and so on, yeah.
Right, so we the bigger loser now. Have a good night, Lennox.
Yes, my friend, yes, my friend. But before I go back to, of course, why I am certain 200% and more that the UNC will win the election and that the PN, in other words, the PN will lose big time. And I'm going as far as to say on record, public record, it may well be a step up from 1986. A step up. Who knows? Everton may well be in the right place on this occasion. But I before I go back there, I want to, of course, there was an article or a video that was circulating, not circulating, but one of the talk show hosts is saying that the issue of shortage and lack of, let's say, verification as far as successive auditor generals are concerned is not new. And that I agree. We have always said yes. But that particular person rooting clearly for the PNM, trying to defend the indefensible, I mean, I don't know why they would want to come up against people like the ground report, corridor transformation, and so on. I mean, the intelligence levels of these people who claim to be talk show hoax, not host, hoax. Yeah, because they can't be real. So, in an attempt, of course, to somehow justify that the $2 billion is a regularity, it is a common thing. They then, of course, try to examine the period 2010 to 2015. And I think they said in 2014 or somewhere there, they reached as far as 200 million that could not have been verified or accounted for by way of course, documentation. Now, I am not saying that it is so or not, because I have not done the research. But the nature of the argument and the purpose for it clearly shows that they are a bunch of dunderheads and the persons who clearly ought not to be where they are to defend, of course, a very complex and a very specific matter that, of course, is what is before the courts and for which the Auditor General have been castigated and which, of course, she enshrined in her report the concerns thereof. $2 to $3 billion. They identified 200 million and then saying that it's no big thing, that is normal. The Auditor General would generally be writing in her report, and even under the UNC, matters of that nature, and attempting, of course, to obfuscate or to simplify these simpletons that particular matter. When I get back, I of course will conclude. Before I go back, of course, to why it is that the UNC will win. In other words, the PNM will lose the 2025 elections. Pleasant good night to welcome, of course, my good friend from Freeport.
Good night. Good night, Smithy.
Hey.
And good night to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
Boy, these people and them who working in this bank, the banking institute, they don't care about nobody, you know. You know, my check went to the bank.
Yeah.
And they sent back the check.
Oh. So...
And telling me the check had come.
All right. No, it cannot be that it didn't come. If they say they send it back, it means that it came and...
Right, hear what happened?
Yeah, go ahead.
They Tuesday they tell me the check had come.
Right. Yeah, you said
when I went this morning, as I sit down, the same man who do all the transaction and tell me we had to close the whole account, open a new account. When the money come, it would go over in the new account. The same man deal with me.
Right.
As he see me, he come. He bring a letter. He say I had to take this to NIS.
Yes.
Yes. That is the letter stating that they send back the check.
Okay.
Why the check go back? Nobody don't know. Right? And they have me with my limp foot.
Yeah.
Running backward and forward. Backward and forward.
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
Right? And I stand up and watching me, and I tell him, I say, but you is the man who do all the transaction. You give me the assurance what would happen, what happened now. And you is the same man who come in to tell me the check gone back to NIS. Right?
Yes.
Now, when I went to NIS tell me, say, here, what happened? You bring a letter here stating the check come back, but we could only pay that check is when we get it in we hand. So somebody say it going back, and they don't know where it even gone to. So I had to wait until about the 3rd of next month before I get anything.
Wow.
And these people in the condition.
And that is not a certainty from the information you would have gotten from NIS.
No, I ain't sure. Sure.
So you're living in hope that they do find it, or they find a way to resolve the matter, even if they would not have found it. But go ahead.
Well, whether they find it or they find it once I get my due,
that's right.
That's all I want.
Yeah, because the bank said they never received. The bank said that they received, but they sent it back. Right, okay. Right.
I started getting like a madman in the air.
Very good.
Because I tell them, I say, oh, you can't have people running up and down, and then in my condition.
Very good.
Why are you doing this thing?
Yeah, that is inhumane. That is inhumane. That is barbaric. That is unacceptable. That is people depraved or devoid of any sense of humanity or compassion. I mean, yeah, in your condition, I mean, come on, and I'm sure that you would have gone there to make it very clear the condition that you are in. Physically.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
I do that. Yeah.
Right. And so I had to wait until about the 5th or the 6th of the month.
Yes.
To know if I get in my pension.
Okay.
So you take it easy.
Yes,
Smithy.
yes, my friend. Thanks for the update. Thanks for the update. Okay, but as I said, I am prepared, of course, to do what I have to do. If we have to blow it up, we have to expose all of these institutions, if only to prevent it from reoccurring and to probably institute further scrutiny or more efficacious treating with customers, because it's poor people we are dealing with who depend on these checks and these subsistence pieces of monies.
These people too careless, man. Carelessness.
Yeah, that is reckless. That is brutal. All right then,
because
thanks.
You had everything in your position. Everything in your position.
Thanks very much.
Right,
Thanks very much. Yes, indeed. People, of course, that's the man. Call us as well. That's the man who has that prostate leg issue. $20,000 to adjust it. That check he's talking about is just a drop in the ocean of money that he has to get in order to, of course, be a little more independent and be more dignified. You heard his voice. You heard him. Well, he's a very proud man, but of course, he cannot move around as he would like. And he's, of course, a stalwart of the ground report and, of course, the corridor transformation, a good friend of mine as well. All right, so let's go straight to the line again. Pleasant good night. Welcome.
Yes, again, Mr. Smith.
Yes.
I want to just say one thing regarding that caller who talked about his NIS check.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what it's like in Trinidad in terms of, now, if he goes to the office of the ombudsman, could that office start an investigation into, and there's so many other things that I listen to people in Trinidad suffering at the hands of the government, and they don't seem to have any redress.
Yeah, boy. Oh,
but is there?
Well, I heard you, so let me just preempt a bit. Yes, there is an ombudsman in the case, but it's for public authorities, so NIS could be so deemed, but he doesn't have the same person to deal with the bank. Of course, there is a banking ombudsman, which is separate and apart from the national ombudsman to deal with, of course, public entities. I'm trying to give you a sense as to the complexity. And then, of course, you have a situation where if it's ordinary people who, of course, have difficulty maybe in putting pen to paper, let me put it that way, and they decide to go to a lawyer or somebody like that, you understand, of course, the cost. But even if we have a public defender department, they may tell you, well, listen, because you're getting a check, you are not qualified to, of course, be defended pro bono, and all of that. So what happens at the end of the day? The majority of the people who really need that kind of service don't go, and they well, in a real sense, they cut the loss and they move on, because the time and energy and the brain power and the humiliation they have to go through, all of that. You see what he did? He had to go to the bank and humiliate himself by, of course, talking loud. I'm sure he would have been disruptive, to so much so that the bank believed that it would disrupt their business, and so I'm sure that is why he got attention. But there are people who are prepared, of course, to just send a letter, and if you remain docile and not, of course, open up your mouth at the appropriate time, you get no service.
So, but are you saying that in Trinidad, to have a public defender look into a matter, you must have zero income then? Because
you must have zero income. You must be a total indigent.
Oh, I thought you had to be at a certain level financially, and then, like, for instance, in Canada, you have level of poverty, right?
Right.
And I'm sure you probably have that in Trinidad too.
Of course.
So if you are below a certain income level, then you are
qualified. Yeah.
So to get a public defender to look into that matter, you have to have zero.
Zero. I can tell you that because, and of course, he was successful, but because of my intervention. But we had a situation where a woman tried to swindle the inheritance of a young man by, of course, organizing with his father before he died a will, and she went to the courts, of course, to probate the will. Well, he, of course, wise enough, he went to a lawyer. He got the money, and he went to a lawyer, of course, to have it stopped, the whole process stopped by what is called a caveat. Anyhow, he ran out of money, and he couldn't pursue the matter. But the matter was now being called by the High Court. So he came to me. Mm-hmm. He came to me now, and we had, of course, I had to do his defense because the other side was saying, listen, he's hamburging the woman from getting her inheritance. So that was, of course, legitimately given to her by his father, and leave him out of anything at all, nothing for him. So we had that situation. So we had to do that. I had to, of course, use my facility here because, of course, you get to the court by way of virtual. Virtual means so it was a virtual hearing, and we put the documents together on the very. It was the Monday, the Sunday before that. We had to email it. Is a good thing. That is the advantage, of course, doing things electronically. At least it will reach any time. So we were able to do that and send it to the lawyer by the morning of the case. Even though, of course, it was supposed to be done some 2 or 3 days within normal court time to reach the court and all parties. Anyhow, it reached the lawyer on the next side acknowledged, and then, of course, the court said, well, listen, we received it, even though it was late, but you did put in a defense. And so we're going to deal with the matter 2 or 3 months. And he asked the guy in front of me on this very system here. He said, listen, how much time you need? Because the judge realized that the defense that he put in was so clear that the woman tried to embezzle, but tried to defraud and insert herself to defraud him of his rightful inheritance, because of course there were other persons who saw who testified to the mental state. You know, they provided affidavits, 2 affidavits showing that his mental state was one where he could not have think clearly to give that woman, that stranger, all of his worldly possession and leave out the son with whom he had a good relations. And of course, there were other evidence, such as a doctor was prepared, of course, to send an affidavit or a medical report indicating that he was unstable and was recommending him to sentence. And in fact, he died. How he died? He hung himself. So all of that, you know. So the judge say, well, listen, how much time you want? So immediately they became concerned. Clearly, the court was concerned, and so they give him time. And obviously, I know by now that woman would have withdrawn that matter because she knows what the outcome will be in such a situation. Yeah. But the point I am making is that had he not gotten in touch with someone like me, you understand what would have happened? He would have been dispossessed of all of his...
So you should be the ombudsman.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't even go there because the matter was before the court. The woman was pursuing the court required process of a probate. A probate is to certify that the will was legitimate and that the person was really entitled, etc., etc. And once that document is signed, that property belongs to the defrauder. That's it. Right. So it's a good thing he came. And there was a lot of anxiety. Sleepless nights I had. I was more concerned for them than they were at one point in time for themselves. They get all those documents ready and so on. And I say that saved the day. But imagine how many of them are out there that are in situations where they can't. So they just give up and they let, of course, evil dominate. I say evil cannot prevail. I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for the afterlife. I'm waiting for justice right here. All right?
Right on.
Okay, my friend. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, of course, for bringing up that, because, of course, I'm sure many others would have benefited from that singular experience and to know that it exists. And what I would advise immediately, parents and or persons who know that they want certain people to inherit their property and so on, do it early. Of course, you may not want to tell the person, but do it early so you know exactly who would be the beneficiary of your property or that which you would want to leave for whosoever. It doesn't matter whether it's family, friend, children, etc. But do it early, and maybe it will avoid some of these things. There's another way to do it as well. You probably could. The danger here is that they could put you out, but you could gift what you would have wanted to put in a will. You could gift it to the person that you are targeting. The problem is that with a gift, a deed of gift, the person could take possession of the property immediately, and if they are so inclined, they have the option of putting you out of your own property that you gifted to them. That is how the cookie crumbles. So it's up to you. So I'm just doing that as a piece of advice for those persons who may be contemplating any one of those actions, because people are really, really, really desperate out there and are evil and will, without blinking, without any compunction, will deceive you. And of course, nothing different to Rowley and the PNM. They wanted to get to the treasury of the country, and therefore what they have done is deceive us, defrauded us, and we must be conscious. So let's get back as to where and how they will not be able to win the 2025 election. Or put another way, why the UNC will win the next election and has to. And I spoke about, of course, human beings and plants as they gravitate to survival, because the first law of survival is what? Self-preservation. Self-preservation. Boils down to that. And of course, one of the fundamental things you do is to move and to escape danger as a living thing. You move because you have to eat, fundamentally, and there are things out there in the let's say the ecology, the geological or the geographic or the biological ecology that will of course want to endanger you, and you must of course find ways to escape. And that is how of course humankind has survived, because of climatic and other conditions. But I don't want to go too philosophical, because Rowley and they don't understand that. They understand brute force, and therefore we must respond appropriately. So what we do, if we want to get, as I anticipate, a notch above 1986 to the 3-3, and possibly to include Laventille now, apart from those philosophical underpinning that I spoke to, Rowley and they have done enough destruction to you, whether you are part of the middle class, the underclass, or the working class. It's clear. And the belligerence, the warlike nature, and the utterances of Rowley and they demonstrates that they will not change. However, we must also be reminiscent. We must understand not the evolution of where we are today. Rowley, as I said, was a freshly mint coin. Nobody knew him. And of course, he came up against Manning. And he showed that he was a what? A corruption what? A corruption investigator. A corruption investigator. He was averse to corruption. He accused Manning of corruption. And when he gets into office, the last 9 years, he has proven to be a corruption promoter. Whether it be recusals of over 500 of he and his cabinet ministers, and fashioned the law to benefit him in more ways than one. But I'm not going to go into details there as yet. There will be time for that. We have seen that, and of course it is issue we started with, how he was inimical in terms of his actions to Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of what? In terms of our relationship with neighbors. And as a consequence, have destroyed our standing on the regional, hemispheric, and international stage. We have seen the total collapse of our economy in spite of the so-called verbal advent of Sandals that turned out to be a puff or a figment of his imagination. We have to say that because all of what was done and the promises that were made, the fact is that we have nothing to show. He said that he's the best salesman for Trinidad and Tobago. And every item, whether it be those two vessels, one from Australia and we learned now one constructed in Vietnam, $1 billion, some bubble surrounded that. It was not true in terms of the amount that was paid. Where the money go? We saw the shenanigans with respect to the Kobo Star and the Galleon's Passage, as well as the Ocean Flower. In those critical days when, of course, it turned out that the Tobago economy not just floundered, but took a nosedive to the point where barges were deployed to, of course, transport goods to Trinidad, to Tobago from Trinidad. And some of them had to be depreciated because they were exposed to sea blast. People, the steel that you construct your home with, and to give it strength, was exposed, of course, to sea blast, to the salt water, to the salted air, and therefore, on its journey up through the Bocas, the people up there now had to discount the steel and other material that was subjected. That is what Rowley did to Tobagonians. Why do you think they are up in arms with him? So I'm saying off the cuff that in the context of Tobago, certainly the PNM it is a foregone conclusion that they would lose in spite of their self-righteous indignation and, of course, their so-called, as the caller rightly said, the illusion of what? That he's a sleight of hand man, that he's a Obia man. That he's a Obia man. But you is a blasted Obia man, and every single thing you touch turns to the biblical pillar of salt. Nothing could go right. So you met $10 billion. People don't know that, and you need to know. They met $10 billion in reserves, and today it is about $4 billion closer, therefore, to the IMF. That is the blood life of our country, and we have just about 5 months of imports in reserve. He dipped into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and take out about $1 billion, and then tells us that when he met it, of course, in 2015, it is back to where it is at the same level today. Well, your common sense cannot be so brutally attacked and insulted. Because whether it is back to where it was, firstly, had nothing to do with the intervention of Rowley and them, you know. Let me tell you that one time. They brought in no investment into the country. And I'm talking here outside of the Heritage. The Heritage and Stabilization Fund has a built-in mechanism to earn money. You just invest the money in, of course, various markets, financial and otherwise, abroad, and you just sit back and let the dividend or the profits come in. That is what the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, and that's how it gets its augmenting. Had nothing to do with the government. However, it is insulting for Imbert and Rory to tell us that it has gone back to where it was because of that mechanism of course, a self-generating income or self-generating augmentation increase. And trying to tell us that, or put another way, not telling us that it is still short of $1 billion which they took out. They tell them about. So if it is $5 billion now, then it's supposed to be $6 billion. Where the blasted billion that was supposed to be there, but you went into it and took it out. It is clear that the integrity of these people has no value whatsoever to them and to you and I, clearly. Because, of course, if you told us that you're not going to implement a property tax, but today is the best thing since sliced bread, we know that they are playing the ass. We know that. We know they continue, of course, to try to insult us. And that notwithstanding, of course, they told us that they will not interfere with the subsidies back in 2015 before they came into office, but they interfered with it. And, of course, not once, not twice, but, of course, the minister would laugh, ha, 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 and tell us that, listen, he did it once and he did it twice, and he may do it again. And as a consequence, it didn't riot yet. What you want again? But let us look from the perspective, because there is more, but let's look from the perspective of their political or electoral fortunes. I want to tell you off the cuff that we only lose more election over the last 9 years than Kamala Persad-Bissessar. You see, how you know that? Because they stopped talking that. And those who are now convinced that that is the case, they're now talking about general election. No. When, of course, there was the by-election in Laventille or in Barataria, and, of course, they were caught on camera saying, because they thought that, of course, the election result was totally in, and they said, Kamala lost again. What does that mean? That was a by-election, you know. And they say, Kamala lost again. So it means, therefore, by-elections as well as local government elections would have included in the cadre of elections that they were considering, and to conclude that Kamala lost again. Well, of course, they realized that Rowley has lost more elections than Kamala Persad-Bissessar, and that is why they have gotten pip. Now, understand that they are definitely silent. They lost Sandy Grande Regional Corporation, the PNM. They lost the Superior by-election. They lost the by-election in Barataria. They lost the Arima by-election. Are still counting. They lost that. They lost one of the two recently by-elections. That's 5. And they tragically and devastatingly lost Tobago. 6. 6 people. And of course, I don't want to talk about, of course, the gains that the UNC made in terms of individual electoral districts in San Fernando, Arima, Laventille, etc., where they have ombudsman. Understand what is happening here. And so it is no longer valid for that propaganda machinery to, of course, take any root or any relevance, so they stop talking about it. And when you see they stop talking about it, bet your bottom dollar that they cannot challenge what LENNOX Smith is saying today, because the idea was that it was elections, any damn election that took place that is of a national nature, well, put another way, that the EBC had supervision, and therefore the Representation of the People's Act would have been, of course, evoked in order to make it happen, and therefore that is what they were talking about. So to talk now today about, of course, national election 2015 and 2020, no. But all of that says that the UNC is on the ascendancy. That is what that is saying. And in the last, of course, by-election, when, of course, the UNC did what they had to do in order, of course, to treat with that matter at the level of the Privy Council, and the Privy Council demanded and insisted that there be elections before, of course, the year expired, that we only preferred to have it illegally. The UNC got what? The ultimate prize, because PNM would have been boasting all now if they had gotten it. Are talking about what? The majority of the votes in that elections. They would have been talking all over the place if they had won. That mass vote in the total amount of preferred electorate to PNM or the UNC. are talking about the popular vote. So let us waste time. And I ain't finished there yet. But of course, it's already, 19 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock, people. So I'll have to come to an end. But I thought I should, of course, share that with you at this point in time. I think I may have one video to share with you as well. Let me just see if that is there. Yes, of course. I want to shoot down. I want to show cockroach, mice. I talk about dead mice and rotten rat and carcasses of any dangerous kind into the medicine of the PNM, relating, of course, to that signing and that recent, of course, addendum to the propaganda machinery of deflection that Rowley and they are engaged in now, because it has multiple level, multi-prong, in order to fool those, first and foremost, those PNM sycophants and apologists, and of course the persons who at one time would have gravitated automatically to the PNM. They have decided not to vote, and therefore the PNM's first task is to try to get them to come to vote before, of course, they venture into attempting, of course, to try to win the next elections. And they can't, because their own people have abandoned them. Let's go to the line. Final call before, of course, we take our departure. A pleasant good night.
Yeah, Lennox.
Hey.
You say you had something to talk about short term.
Yes.
I want to hear about that. You don't get chance to watch news and things, so.
All right, okay. But Short Young, I think you know. Apart from the latest, from the latest attempt to try to deflect attention by saying that the PNM is going after the money that the UNC is owing the court as a result of failure of the action in 2015. Remember, George Young met with, of course, the ambassador under Trump, Rugrello. Mondelo, yes, Mondelo. I thought Rugrello is the former San Fernando mayor. All right, okay. Yes. Yeah, Mondelo. And said that in the parliament that listen, we didn't talk about Delcy Rodriguez. That was part and parcel, of course, of the efforts to show how futile acts like what Rowley signed today in Guyana will be, and of course, in this case, to the Americans and the incoming, of course, President-designate administration, President Trump. Because the ambassador then came out afterwards, after Young made that statement in Parliament, and said, no, we did discuss it, I did raise it. And of course, when he went back to the United States, he said that Rowley and they are not interested in America. And that was a Trump ambassador. Not so, my friend?
Yeah, that's
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. So,
ambassador make it clear that he's talking.
Yes. He made it clear and pellucid. So, the point I am making is that their asses are grasses. And I'm going to play now why Moody would take with not a pinch, not a tablespoon, but a truckload of salt, that signing, because he would be aware of the embarrassment that Rowley placed on his ambassador here, when in fact he mentioned to the whole world, come and get vaccine, all you have to do is apply if you are a small state. And Rowley did not do it, but instead he castigated the ambassador here. Let's listen to that now. All right, my friend. Yes, okay. Yes, people. You see, they just do things and forget. And he believed that we stupid and that we know nothing, and therefore he on the world stage, and that is that for him, maybe to add to a resume that he may not use. The man is 75 years. So I don't know what he want to add to a resume for again. That's our exercise in futility. But listen to him.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said he first heard about vaccines from India from local doctors. During conversations with the Prime Minister on Thursday, Dr. Rowley said that the Indian High Commissioner Arun Kumar Sahu spoke to local doctors about the vaccines and did not speak to the government. He heard about it a second time when local businessmen were seeking to make arrangements to bring vaccines into the country.
Let me start it all over because I failed to bring it into your view so that you could share every pixel of this particular presentation, where, of course, he insulted the Indian High Commissioner here and suggesting that somehow he was dishonest. I interpret it to be that because that is how Rowley is, but he will tell you it in maybe in a euphemistic way if he could. But he's usually brutal and wrong.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said he first heard about vaccines from India from local doctors. During conversations with the Prime Minister on Thursday, Dr. Rowley said that the Indian High Commissioner Arun Kumar Sahu spoke to local doctors about the vaccines and did not speak to the government. He heard about it a second time when local businessmen were seeking to make arrangements to bring vaccines into the country. Dr. Rowley said it was then that Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Amy Brown, approached Mr. Sahu to find out about the reports of vaccines available from India. To this, his response was, "I don't know."
We communicated directly with India to find out if this was available. And if it was, well, we're willing to participate. I can tell you, there has been no confirmation of any such thing from India. We also, contrary to what they're saying, that we don't want Indian-produced vaccines, we also communicated with the supplier from India who is supplying the world.
But the Prime Minister said that the supplier responded by saying that they were not taking any orders. Dr. Rowley said the vaccine suppliers took pre-orders from the wealthy countries.
In that environment, a lot of charlatans have hit the road with the carpet bags, coming to offer you vaccine because you as a sovereign country can't get it, but they can get it for you. And we've had approaches. One person wanted $1.4 million as a finder's fee to get us vaccines. 1.8 million. I've had CARICOM colleagues tell me, look, I'm onto 1 million vaccines here, but I could only use X amount. Would you take the rest? And
I want to tell you that turned out to be a blatant and consummate typical lie and a stereotypical exemplification of the phantasmagorical concoction and manufacturing of a very pernicious, evil, and deadly mind which Rowley possesses. You see, because the ambassador, I'll deal with it on Saturday as well, because the ambassador came out and said, no, it wasn't so. The whole world was told that the vaccines would have been available, Rowley. And that is why the Barbadians got, the Guyanese got, the Dominicans got, even Grenada, I believe, and St. Vincent got. But the administration here in Trinidad so engulfed with themselves, so arrogant and contemptuous, and so aloft, and so inward-looking and self-serving, didn't care at all about Trinidad and Tobago and the fact that even though we were vaccine skeptic, but that opportunity ought to have been taken as an option for our citizens in this country, as Barbados did. It was after Barbados sent 1,500 doses from their stock, and I think Dominica did the same in terms of maybe a little less. And after the opposition wrote to Kamala Persad-Bissessar, wrote to Modi asking for the free vaccine, it had nothing to do with money. But Rowley sits there before all of that and telling the population that people were trying to hoodwink he and the government, and somehow he resists that. Somehow he saved we something. We save us something. Yeah, that is what he's trying to do. Self-aggrandizement in a vacuum that is vacuous. You know what I say? I say self-aggrandizement in a vacuum that is vacuous, that is untrue, that is lies. Never did. None of that happened. In fact, the company that he talked about, and Samakal came out, the usually very reserved, the CEO or head of that company, one of the sub-guys, they said, no, it was the ministry, it's the Ministry of Health that approached us, and we say we don't have US money, but we are prepared, of course, we are prepared to assist. Let's go to the line, and then, of course, we will. All right, okay, so we lost that one. Sorry about that. We were prepared to assist, but here what to do. We will pay for the vaccines, but you will deduct what corporation tax we have. That was only fair. You know, Rowley wanted them to put out their money. He ain't prepared, of course, to convert the money into US because that's how the people selling the vaccine. And he still wanted them to pay not property, but to pay corporation tax. That wicked man. And in such circumstance, no businessman will agree. So Trinidad and Tobago was prevented from getting early vaccines. I am not saying that whether or not we would have taken it, as so many people didn't, but the fact is that you as a government had that responsibility to protect your citizens. And in fact, Rowley is on record saying that those metropolitan countries gobble up all of the early vaccines, and the price that they had to pay, put another way, they say is a certain amount that Trinidad and Tobago would not be able to accommodate simply because we don't have the population for it. All of that transpired. Do you think Moody do not know? You think so? People, we will see on Saturday. Don't forget, of course, that tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself. My apology for not being present today, but we had a very protracted blackout. Loss of electricity this morning, and that went beyond the 10 o'clock hour when we would have cut off, and so I was unable to put in a presence on the ground report this morning, but I will certainly do so tomorrow morning, God's willing, and all things being equal, including, of course, the presence of electricity in the building. Of course, that would have drove me, because it is said that necessity is what? The mother of invention. And so I met with my colleagues here in the studio, and we have decided that we will have to get an emergency generator, if only to just make sure that we are on, whether night or day, to deliver to the people. Electricity must not prohibit, must not curtail, must not be a hurdle to, of course, sharing these vital pieces of information on a daily basis to you out there, whether you are in the diaspora or you are in the country or you are up the islands. And of course, I am sure that those persons who have some clout, some influence, especially where elections in different countries are concerned, and of course you may be part and parcel of assisting in international observers, we on the ground report and on the corridor transformation will not mind. I am responsible for that, so you can take this number. Please call me. Your information will be kept confidential, because your important input in monitoring the Trinidad and Tobago elections next to come 2025 will be crucial. I expect that Rowley will try to thief I expect that there will be, of course, a fallout, and hopefully not as brutal as Guyana, to, of course, install Irfan Ali and others. In other words, in spite of an attempt by Rowley and they to thief the elections, like Granger did in Guyana, I expect that the population will understand that everybody in the particular constituency as an elector must come out, and once we have a close to full participation, it will be very limited or very difficult for Rowley to steal the next elections. How could the EBC account for a constituency that has 20,000 but ended up with 25,000 persons voting in the ballot box? Oh, that is what we are talking about. But I want to say finally to you young people, 18 years already, this year, probably last year, and those of you who will be before the next elections next year, that you are now qualified because the age of suffrage or the age of voting is 18 years. But you can only go and vote if you have your what is called your ID card. That is your registration card, and that is your voting card as well. And therefore, you must tell mommy, tell daddy, tell family, tell, of course, your siblings, tell your peers, tell your friends, tell the neighborhood, tell the community, tell the village, tell the town, tell Trinidad and Tobago that, of course, this election is a crucial one, and therefore that level of evil that Rowley has perpetrated on you, the young ones, and those who still have a salary but of course cannot make ends meet because they have mismanaged the affairs of the country and they have generated a corrupt and of course institutionalized the interference of significant institutions in this country that are supposed to be constitutionally protected, and we will have none of it, and the next election must be in favor of the UNC, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, as of course yellow is the code. See you on Thursday night, but of course tomorrow morning on the ground report. Have a wonderful rest of the night. Yes, indeed. I think I better end, of course, with the vibes or with the feel that, of course, to generate continued and persistent animosity against this government. Their evil must not be for one moment displaced with anything but making certain that the population is ready to get rid of them from every perspective and from every angle. And of course, I think I better tell the young people, show the young people what young people are saying at this time. What young people are saying at this time, their future is dim, glim, and gloomy. And while divine intervention has its place, the Lord help those who help themselves. Oh yes, indeed. And let me end by simply saying, that the longest journey begins with a single step. And who the gods wish to destroy, they first send them mad. And that, of course, power intoxicates and makes men giddy, and Rowley and they are giddy. They are inebriated, they are drunk. And in addition, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and Rowley and they have arrogated absolute power unto themselves as they are extremely disrespectful and of course the hatred to the population and their belligerence and their total and absolute destruction knows no boundary. After all, people, after all, it is said of people like that, where there is, of course, a conspiracy to treat or to betray in such a way and you refuse to, of course, respond appropriately as a citizen to correct that wrong, you will continue to wallow in the misery emanating from that level of mismanagement. Let's hear the young people.
UNC for Wale. Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. BNM must go, Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. Tell them go, Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. BNM must go, Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. Everyone's coming out to bring about a change. Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. I see young and old, we crying out for this. Rowdy at a go. Yeah, want a government to drill policy, a government to do joke, a government to do fight we down, a government to do good, a government with integrity. Now look how they understand. A government in city and tea, no without the bullet man everybody. Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. BNM must go, Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. Tell them go, Rowdy at a go, Rowdy at a go. BNM must go, Rowdy at a go. Hey, now everybody let's vote. Put them out, vote. Put them out, vote. Put them out. The Rowdy time to resign.
Since you take over as Prime Minister, is plenty pressure. We have to suffer, and you will do nothing better. Rowley really have to go. Oh, Rowley really have to go. Oh, Rowley really have to go. Since you come in power, you is a big failure. Collapse the economy and they do nothing for we. What you have to show, we don't really know. What you have to show, we don't really know. Sorry Trinidad and Tobago, but Rowley really have to go. Oh.
From the Trinidad location, 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. SOS, SOS, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Help! Help! The Trinidad, a luxury liner, sailing the Caribbean Sea. An old captain named Eric Williams. Oh yes, it's smooth and free. But sadly Eric Williams passed away. The ship hit rough water that day. Someone turned the bridge over to a captain named Chambers. Me blood crawl, things start to fall. Hold me head when I sail a fall. Captain, this ship is sinking. Captain.
I want to invoke the doctor and then write him a letter. I want to ask him a question. If he knew what was going on, the other day I was passing, I hear people complaining. He is the man with the answer, but he's quite over yonder. They say, snake in the palisade. Snake in the palisade.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
Snake in the palisade. And they biting hard. Snake in the palisade. I'm sorry for Trinidad. country.
I have a political cemetery. It's not for people like you and me. It is for all them politicians. And I dig in their grave, no fuck with me hand. I find some of them, they living too long. And every 5 years it's the same old song. Some of them dead, just shame to lie down. So I prepare for them a burial ground. Rowley, my first grave for he. With joy in my heart, put him down with glee. All of them useless politicians, only making up numbers in my island. I don't care all who go vex with me, but Kamala I not ready to bury. She is a strong, determined woman like me, and deserve a chance to run this country. When she in power, I don't go hungry. And Calypsonian does get big money. She don't deserve no spot in my cemetery. I put in she in the center of the city. Numbers in my island. I don't care all who go vex with me, but Kamala I not ready to bury. She is a strong, determined woman like me, and deserve a chance to run this country. When she in power, I don't go hungry. And Calypsonian does get big money. She don't deserve no spot in my cemetery. I put in she in